Hi, this is Mariah Gullo from The Hollywood Reporter, and we're in studio today with Alexandre Desplat. Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
We're here to talk about a few of your amazing projects this year. The first one I would love to talk to you about is Isle of Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a special relationship with Wes Anderson,
Yes.
Obviously. What do you think it is about the two of you working together that garners so many awards and nominations?
I suppose it's a very active collaboration when we're together in my studio. It goes very fast. I react very fast to his ideas. I suggest things. He has already a sense of what type of orchestration he would like to have, so I do go grab ideas, and I think this very strong organic collaboration is special for him and for me too, because it's a real ping-pong game for many hours, and at some point everything is layered, and he leaves the studio, and that's it. Everything's there.
Is it unusual to have that kind of back and forth with a director?
Maybe not at that point of meticulous detail. You see, I mean, if you look at his movies, you can see how detailed and specific every single thing which is in the frame is chosen, placed. How the camera moves are so, to the millimeter. And Isle of Dogs, I think, he's gone to the top of his game on that level of meticulous detail.
Yeah.
And of course, the music has to be as, precise but at the same time precise, but giving a sense of the arc of the film and playing with the characters, which is what I like to do anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, one thing about the Isle of Dogs is that the score is very powerful and has a level of seriousness to it, but it's also a story about these cute dogs. So how did you balance the whimsy with the power that's actually behind the score, especially in the beginning?
Well, it starts with these little boys playing taiko drums, these little puppets. So right away, it says that you're in the world of childhood. And with this kind of warlike sound of the taiko drums, you know that you're going on an adventure. So you have to balance these two things. Then you understand that there's an antique tale that says that there's dogs people and cat people, and they've been in war.
Yeah.
So there's a tension already created. We had two options: the option of doing something very cute because it's a story of a little boy going on an adventure. And a little boy who had lost his parents, so it's a very heavy start.
Yeah.
It's not that funny. Or focus on the energy that this boy has, this sense of life and his bravery. He's a little prince, very valiant, and we chose that. And the taiko is actually his melody. There's no gentle melody line because it's a little boy. It's the drums which are the melody. And they take you from the beginning to the end of the film. And, on top of the drums come, at times, other instruments, other sections and other sounds. But the taiko drums almost never stop throughout, because you can go from the very big taiko drum with a very low, big sound to the very tiny sound of the sticks on the side of the rim of the taiko, and it never stops. It goes to boom, to.
Yeah. How did you get the idea to use the male choir?
The male choir. I guess it's because of this archaic tale that we talk about that has been going for centuries, and there was something really earthy about that, and so we used the very low male choir, basses. And then we discussed if there could be lyrics in Japanese, because everything is in Japanese, which is something very, very special, that the Japanese in the film are not dubbed, looped, it's just Japanese. You have to guess what they're saying, which is very smart, I think. And so I found this motif of 4 notes, ta-dum, ba-dum, that the saxophones will later be playing. And I suggested that maybe they could sing Yoko Ono, because Yoko Ono is in the film.
Yeah.
She plays a role. And it made him laugh, and we kept that idea.
Amazing. Has anything changed in the way that you work from Fantastic Mr. Fox to Isle of Dogs?
Not in the way that I work. I think
He's changed.
His imagination. He's grown so much as an artist. Yeah. Much more. He's really developed his wings so wide that I need to follow up. That's simple that way. I think when you look at the frame of Isle of Dogs, it's I was watching it again on a big screen 3 days ago. It's amazing, the detail of it, the beauty of it. And Mr. Fogg was very, very good and a great movie, but he's developed his craft and his ideas by 1,000.
Yeah.
I think. So I have to, match that and go quicker and find more ideas and be more, even more challenging.
Yes. Now, when you do challenge yourself with, these kind of innovative new sounds, new ideas, new music, do you ever kind of paint yourself into a corner where you get into technical difficulties because of what you've created?
It's more the way you can combine new ideas, new sounds, new instrumentation, and still make it match the picture. When you have a flute or a violin, you know which type of sound you can bring together, a symphonic orchestra. But here, when you have 4 saxophones, 4 recorders, 2 double basses, 3 French horns, and these taiko drums, and the choir, you go, why did I choose to put that orchestra together? It makes no sense. But it's actually very exciting. Because it pushes you to find new ideas, to find new sonic solutions, and new dramaturgic solution, how to bring the same, emphasize and convey emotions with another tool. It's like if you were working always with the same actors, and suddenly you have a new bunch of actors which are completely fresh. They've never made a movie, and you have to bring them to your world. It's very exciting, difficult, but exciting. Love work.
Let's talk about the Sisters Brothers new movie that's out. This is your first Western, correct?
Yes.
How does that feel to create? I mean, were you excited to?
It's horrible.
No.
It's horrible. It's horrible because you feel the weight of all these great scores that have been written in the past.
Yes.
And there's many type of scores for Western already. The Ennio Morricone, operatic, the Elmer Bernstein, epic with a lot of brass and crazy rhythms, the depressive folk of Neil Young, and then you go, wow, I have to find something else, and you don't know where to go. The road is completely open to anything. Now the good thing is that we've made 7 movies with Jack.
Yes.
Since 1994, so it goes by. We go back a long way, and he wants me also to be taking chances. He doesn't want me to be safe and try and imitate or follow. He wants me to find a new path or a different path. And the best way I found was to, stop thinking and watching that it was a Western, and thinking, well, it's only 2 killers. Their brain is like the brain of a snake. They have no thoughts. Even though Eli seems to be a bit more, interested into civilization, and it could be 2 killers in a film noir, in a city. So I chose to actually not play at all the Wild West and the banjos and the French horns. Yeah. And I put together a jazz blues combo with piano, Fender piano, bass, drums, and guitars. And on top of that, there's a prepared piano, where you put little objects in the strings, and an electric violin, and sometimes an electric cello. So they give a modernity, I can use that word, and freshness, and also a weirdness, an eeriness to the score. Even though the basis is a bit jazz blues, it's not at all like a jazz blues, you know, if it was framed like, you know, standard orchestra. It's on the edge of something very strange all the time, like these two persons, and they're entering into a new world.
Yeah.
You know, they're
a modern world.
Yes, and the two other characters played by Jackie Hall and Riz Ahmed, they're opening to civilization. They want the civilization to appear, and the link between people to change. They dream of a new society. So these instruments, the cello, the prepared piano, the violin, they are kind of the dream made in sound of what these characters are thinking of and dreaming of. Voila. Oh, there's a string orchestra at some point to give some width, you know, and some weight and some depth of field, but mostly it's this obsessive, repetitive patterns of these two guys who have only one thing in mind: killing.
Yes.
And slowly the music starts shifting to this more eerie sensation.
For Operation Finale, you have said that you wanted to kind of change up the usual instruments of lament. For the story about a war criminal, you wanted to do something a little different. How did you make that different?
Well, there again, the weight on my shoulder, the burden on my shoulders is John Williams with Schindler's List and many other incredible scores. You can't go again, having a solo violin playing a melody, or I just couldn't do that. I thought people would have laughed at me. No, it's true. It's just cliche, and as we did for Isle of Dogs, using no Japanese instruments except for the taiko drums. Sisters Brothers, no Western-like instrumentation. For this movie, I also thought I shouldn't go into any, Jewish lament kind of writing. And I came with this idea that maybe, because Eichmann was in charge of organize all the trains in Europe, he was really in charge of doing that. I was thinking about all these railways, all these connections, and maybe I could have a bunch of percussion playing different patterns, different rhythms, that we feel these many lines, crossing each other's and taking different routes and directions. And at first, Chris Weitz was thinking that we could have only choir for all the film, but it felt very limited to me. But what we did, instead of having a violin, we used a children choir, a boys' choir, and it's the boys' choir which actually is the lament, because there's a recurring image in the film of this young woman with a baby in her arms being killed by Eichmann's men, and the children's choir at more distance. I think there was something more angelic and more maybe purer than having the pathos of a violin.
You're also writing an opera. It will be performed in February, right?
Yes, in the Concert du Luxembourg. Yes, Silence. Well, nice title, as you can imagine, for a composer. Yes, I read this short story a long time ago. It's by Yasunari Kawabata, the Nobel Prize Japanese novelist. And it's a very beautiful short story about a young writer who goes to visit his master, who has had a stroke and he can't write anymore. He can't even communicate. And it's all these questions about what happens to you when you can't perform or play an instrument or act or paint, whatever you were made for and you were, living for. You can't do it anymore. So it's a very beautiful, very philosophical, metaphysical short story. We adapted the short story with my wife. We did the libretto. She's going to direct, and Soleil. And she actually was a violinist And she had an accident during an operation of the brain, and she lost the use of her left arm. So it really resonated for us in something deep in our souls.
Yeah.
And it's a strange configuration again of instrumentation, using Japanese setup, only Occidental instruments, but with the Japanese, like in the Gagaku, by a group of 3 instruments. Voilà. And it's a chamber opera. It's not a big opera. It's 115 and 2 singers, 1 narrator, and 10 musicians. It's a small object.
Oh.
Voilà.
So you've had so many challenges over your career. It's something that obviously you take to and you thrive. Has there anything that's gotten the best of you? Any particular score?
I wouldn't be able to say that, because there's nothing I look back to. I don't listen to my scores unless I have a concert and I have to prepare conducting. Otherwise, they're stored in a drawer. And no, I can think of collaborations I've had with great directors, and that I know that this collaboration was fruitful. For me, it made me grow as a composer. Jacques Audiard is one, obviously, Stephen Frears, Polanski, Georges Clooney. There's many of them. Wes Anderson, of course. Many French directors I've worked with through the years. Tom Hooper, doing King's Speech with him. And lately Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah.
Working with Guillermo was absolutely beautiful. He's such full of energy and love and desire of beauty and artistry, and that that was a very wonderful encounter.
Is there anything you're searching for now? Anything new you're hoping for or craving to do next?
The only goal is trying, and I know it sounds stupid, but it's just to improve, write better and learn more and read more classical scores to understand better how Mozart, how Prokofiev, Stravinsky, Ravel. I keep doing that all the time, Debussy, and trying to improve my style and my craft, and I hope also, crossing fingers, that I will only be able to write for great movies with great artists, great directors, but there's a long way. I hope.
Alexandre Desplat, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
We look forward to all your new projects.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Merci.